Welcome to Family History Mysteries, a podcast that tells the stories uncovered through family history research, the unexpected stories of everyday people. I am an avid family historian who has been compiling my family tree for over 15 years, with nearly 20,000 people recorded in my trees. And please put a review on my podcast. That will certainly help in getting the word out there and creating more listenership. Shorts episode number 22. Isaiah Fletcher. Isaiah Fletcher was born in March 1824 in Willenhall, Staffordshire, England. At the age of 18 years and 8 months, he enlisted as a private in the 99th Regiment of Foot, by trade a brass padlock maker, on the 7th of November 1842 in Coventry, Warwickshire, England. He came out to Tasmania, where he married Winifred Haynes on the 26th of August 1853 in Hobart. The marriage certificate stated that he was 28 and Winifred 19. Winifred was a nurse at the time of their marriage. They had a daughter, Louisa Jane Fletcher, in Hobart on the 10th of May 1855. In Hobart, Isaiah transferred from the 1st Battalion 12th Regiment of Foot as a volunteer on the 31st of October 1855 at the age of 31 years and 7 months. Their second child, Frederick James Fletcher, was born on the 22nd of October 1856 in Hobart. On the 31st of December 1856 in Hobart, Isaiah was discharged from the 99th Regiment of Foot after 14 years and 55 days, having spent 13 years and 3 months in the Australian colonies. His character and conduct was exemplary and he had 2 good conduct badges. They had a third child, Maria Ann Eliza Fletcher, who was born in 1860. The family must have moved to the mainland as Winifred Haynes died on the 7th of February 1865 in Sydney at the age of only 31. On the 13th of February 1867 in the Sydney Morning Herald it announced Isaiah's second marriage. On Monday the 11th of February at Scott's Church, Mr Isaiah Fletcher of Redfern, a native of Staffordshire, England, to Ellen Lewis of Sydney, daughter of William Anthony Lewis of Brighton, England. However, only 6 months later, on the 30th of August 1867 in the Sydney Empire, it stated that Isaiah Fletcher was ordered to pay 6 shillings a week for the support of his wife. On the 22nd of March 1870 in the Sydney Morning Herald, a notice, I, Ellen Fletcher, beg to inform you, Isaiah Fletcher, my husband, bootmaker of Redfern, that if you do not let me return to my home or support me, I shall marry again and consider that you have no more claim on me after this date. It was dated the 1st of April 1870. He must have returned as Ellen and Isaiah had a son, Thomas Fletcher, on the 6th of January 1871 in Sydney. However, he died on the 5th of March 1872. Only 2 months after their son was born, on the 13th of March 1871, Isaiah married Catherine Hunt, née Carter, bigamously. Catherine claimed she was a widow, but the only marriage record of a Catherine Carter was to James Hunt on the 6th of February 1871 in Sydney. On the 13th of February 1871 in the Sydney Empire, it announced that on the 6th of February at St Mary's Cathedral, James Stevens, son of Mrs James Hunt of Singleton, New South Wales, to Catherine, eldest daughter of Mrs James Carter, native of Dublin, Ireland. And on the 9th of August 1871 in the Sydney Morning Herald, Isaiah Fletcher appeared to answer on information in which Henry Kerr, a sergeant of police, charged him with having on the 13th of March feloniously married Catherine Hunt, his wife, to whom he was married to on the 11th of February 1867, being then alive. Kerr produced a copy of a certificate of marriage, performed by Reverend Dr. Lang, on the 11th of February 1867 at the Scott's Church, Sydney, between Isaiah Fletcher of Redfern, widower, and Ellen Lewis, spinster, and the copy of another certificate of a marriage ceremony performed by Reverend Bailey on the 13th of March between Isaiah Fletcher, widow, and Catherine Hunt, widow. These documents are signed E.G. Ward, Registrar's General Office, Sydney. Produced also the original document referring to the marriage of Isaiah Fletcher with Ellen Lewis, witnessed by H. Lewis and Eliza Freeman. Henry Lewis deposed that he was present at the marriage of the defendant with Ellen Lewis by Reverend Dr. Lang at his residence, and Eliza Freeman gave similar evidence. Mr. Carroll, on behalf of the defendant, cross-examined the witnesses for the prosecution. The case was fully proved by the evidence of the Crown.
It appeared that the first wife's bad conduct had been most erroneously supposed by the prisoner to be some justification for him in respect to her, as regarded the offence of which he is clearly guilty. It is also transpired in the course of the hearing of the case that the second wife was herself supposed to be a married woman when Fletcher bigamously married her, so that she could not have suffered much in her social prospects and womanly feelings. The verdict was guilty but recommended to mercy, and the sentence was 9 months' imprisonment in Darlinghurst Jail with hard labour. In his jail records, it states that he was a shoemaker from England. He was born in 1824, he was 5'8", and he came out on the Constance. On the 19th of August 1872 in the Sydney Evening News, Isaiah Fletcher was fined 40 shillings with 6 shillings and 6 costs of court and 21 shillings professional costs, or 14 days jail, for assaulting Maria Moran. Maria Moran and Isaiah Fletcher had a son, Albert Fletcher, who was born on the 28th of February 1873 in Redfern, but he died at only 5 weeks old. On the 21st of May 1873 in the Sydney Morning Herald, Maria Moran versus Isaiah Fletcher was a case for the recovery of certain articles of wearing apparel valued at £4. The complainant identified the defendant as the person referred to in her information. He has refused to deliver the goods, though he has no claim upon them or her. For the defence, Mr. Fletcher was placed into the box. He deposed that when he became possessed of the articles, the complainant was living with him, and he paid money on account of them for the complainant, who owes him 45 shillings or 50 shillings. Mr. Carroll said that he has been prosecuted for and convicted of bigamy. Order was made for the delivery of the goods. And on the 23rd of September 1873 in Parramatta, he bigamously married Maria Moran. Isaiah was 49 and Maria 22. Maria died in Hobart on the 9th of April 1874. On the 2nd of November 1874 in Sydney, he bigamously married Mary Rolfe, née Crittenden. On the 9th of January 1875, in the Australian Town and Country Journal of Sydney, it said, on the 2nd of December, Isaiah Fletcher, widower of Redfern, Sydney, New South Wales bootmaker, to Mary Rolfe of Sydney, New South Wales. 3 months after their marriage, on the 13th of April 1875, in the Sydney Evening News, Mary Fletcher, for an assault upon her husband, Isaiah Fletcher, was ordered to pay a fine of 1 shilling or to be imprisoned till the rise of the court. The defendant admitted the marriage. Mrs. Fletcher deposed that she'd been married to the defendant nearly 5 months and living with him for 5 weeks, for about 2 weeks of which he never spoke to her. She at length asked him for the reason of his silence, and he, in reply, said that he did not wish to live with her as his wife. She understands that she is his 6th wife. About a fortnight after the marriage, he struck her. She left his house about 3 weeks before Christmas, and 5 or 6 times since she has been to him asking for support. On one occasion, she found a woman sitting at tea with the defendant, and he ordered his son to turn the complainant out, which he did with violence. She last applied to him on Wednesday last week when he ordered her away, and with violence pushed her against the door. He has told her over and over again that he has another woman to take her place, and that she has several times seen him with a woman, both in his house and in the streets. On cross-examination, the complainant said that in December last she summoned her husband to this court, but the magistrate dismissed the information because he said he was willing to take her home and provide for her. She went to his house that day and found it locked up, and she has since been to him at his present residence. In reply, the defendant gave evidence denying that his wife had ever asked him either to take her home or to give her maintenance, but that whenever she came to him it was only to abuse. On one occasion she threatened his life, and then he ordered her out and shut the door. I have been convicted of bigamy. I made a declaration before marriage that there was no lawful impediment. The defendant's son deposed that the woman referred to by the complainant was one who had been hired to do a day's washing, but on cross-examination he would not swear that woman would not walk out with his father. The order was made for payment of 15 shillings weekly with £3 3 shillings professional costs. And on the 30th of April 1875 in the Sydney Evening News, the charge of bigamy against Isaiah Fletcher came on hearing again in the Central Police Court this morning. Henry Lewis, a bootmaker living in Willenhall, said that he was present on the 11th of February 1867 at Reverend Dr. Lang's residence in Sydney when Isaiah Fletcher and his sister Ellen Lewis were married. Another witness named Eliza Freeman was present when the ceremony was performed. Detective Camphin produced the certificate of marriage between Isaiah Fletcher and Mary Rolfe, dated the 2nd of November 1874. The following evidence was given by Mary Rolfe. I reside with my daughter in Elizabeth Street, Sydney. I know the defendant before the court to the sorrow of my heart. I remember the 2nd of November 1874. I was married to the defendant on that day in the Scotch church. The witnesses to the ceremony were Thomas and Mary Dawes. The Isaiah Fletcher named in the certificate now shown me is the person before the court. Thomas Dawes gave evidence to having been present at the ceremony, and the prisoner was committed to take his trial at the next sittings of the Central Criminal Court. It was stated by one of the officers of the court that the witness, Mary Rolfe, was Fletcher's sixth wife. On the 13th of May 1875 in the Sydney Morning Herald, Isaiah Fletcher has pled guilty to a charge of bigamy. His Honour said that he had read the statement which had been handed to him and approved that the charge of the Crown was well founded, and he was sentenced to 6 months' imprisonment in Darlinghurst Jail. Isaiah was released from Darlinghurst Jail in November 1875. On the 24th of July 1878, in the New South Wales Police Gazette, John Fletcher, alias Isaiah Fletcher, charged with inflicting grievous bodily harm upon Kate Duggan, has been arrested by Constable Havens of Sydney Police. In the Sydney Evening News on the 23rd of July 1878, it outlined what occurred. On Sunday night, Constable Havens, who was on duty in Kent Street, heard the screams of a woman in a house occupied by John Fletcher, and upon entering found a young woman named Kate Duggan in a room, lying in a pool of blood. He took her to the infirmary where Dr. Marsden attended to her. Her statement was to the effect that she'd been in the employ of Fletcher and that she asked him for her wages but did not get them. She had not been discharged and went to the house on Sunday night and knocked at the door when Fletcher told her to go away and warned her that if she came again he would give her something for her trouble. She did, however, return, and after she knocked, Fletcher opened the door, laid hold of her, dragged her into a room, threw her down, tore off her dress and kicked her in the side, concluding by striking her on the head and wounding her severely with a loaded whip on the head. Dr. Marsden testified at the Central Police Court this morning that the woman was not out of danger, and the above state of facts being proved, the prisoner was committed to take his trial at the next quarter sessions. The jury returned a verdict of not guilty, and Isaiah was discharged. Mary Rolfe died in September 1883 in Sydney. On the 25th of May 1889, in Redfern, he married Mary Catherine Jenkins, née Martin, when he was 64 and Mary 49. On the 2nd of February 1895 in the Australian Town and Country Journal, Isaiah Fletcher, who had a brother at Burnley who wrote, "Been in the 99th foot, taken his discharge in Sydney and had not been heard of for 36 years. But he turns out to be well and hearty and will be glad to hear from his family, and has sent his address home through a friend, Mr. H. Bell of Woollahra, who has taken great pains to put the brothers in communication." And Isaiah died on the 29th of January 1905 in Granville, New South Wales, aged 80. Isaiah's children: Louisa Jane Fletcher, who was born in Hobart in May 1855, married James Seelan in Sydney on the 21st of May 1877 when she was 22 and James 36. They had 4 children and moved to Tasmania by 1880. On the 16th of January 1880 in the Launceston Examiner, it says James Seelan begs to inform the public he started a shop in Elizabeth Street of Japanese fancy goods, drapery and furniture. However, by June 1880 in the Launceston Examiner, James Seelan intends selling the remainder of his stock of Japanese fancy goods, drapery and furniture at greatly reduced prices. James died at Marina, Tasmania on the 22nd of May 1890 at the age of 59. He drowned in the Tamar River. His probate was given to Louisa, which totalled at £615. Louisa then married Henry Ping, another storekeeper, on the 2nd of June 1891 at Ringarooma in Tasmania. They had a daughter, Mary Louisa Ping, at Marina, Tasmania, on the 27th of August 1891, and then another 3 children. Louisa died aged only 36 on the 3rd of March 1892 at Marina. On the 22nd of March 1892 in the Launceston Examiner, says, "I regret to have to chronicle the death of an esteemed neighbour, Mrs. Henry Ping, who died rather suddenly from lung disease. Her demise is very much regretted, as she has been for many years a resident of Marina, a good neighbour, always ready and willing to assist the poor and needy. The funeral was a very large one. The deceased leaves a husband and 4 children to mourn her loss. Henry married again and died in 1938. In his obituary, it says that Henry William Ping, known as Harry, for years well known in the tin mining fields of the East Coast and in the law courts as a Chinese interpreter, died at the Launceston Public Hospital on Thursday in his 78th year. He was a native of Ballarat and came to Tasmania when young and worked successfully on several fields. He made his headquarters at Marina, subsequently residing at Liffey and Launceston. He then went back to Melbourne and for a few months back returned to Launceston. He was an accomplished linguist, a keen student and well-read, and was an entertaining conversationalist. Frederick James Fletcher, who was born in October 1856 in Hobart, married Mary Buswell in Sydney in June 1883. The announcement was in the Sydney Evening News. By Reverend Lane, Frederick James Fletcher, only son of Isaiah Fletcher, to Mary, third daughter of Thomas Buswell of Newtown. Frederick and Mary had 2 daughters, Ethel Louisa Fletcher in 1885 and Florence in August 1877. Ethel married in April 1907 and their notice was in the Sydney Morning Herald. On the 24th of April at St Stephen's, Newtown, George Uriel Bloomfield of Homebush to Ethel Louisa, eldest daughter of Frederick James Fletcher of Flemington. Florence married Edwin Bowers in Paddington in 1914. Frederick then married Mary West on the 2nd of March 1912 when he was 55. He was working as a watchman at the time of their marriage. However, on the 10th of December 1915 in the Sydney Morning Herald, it announced the petition of divorce by Frederick to Mary Fletcher on the grounds of desertion. His Honour granted a decree nisi returnable in 6 months. Frederick then married Amelia Rebecca Florence Higgins, known as Florence, on the 30th of August 1918, when he was 61 and Amelia 33. And Frederick died on the 20th of June 1928 in Flemington, New South Wales at the age of 71. The third child was Mary Ann Eliza Fletcher. She was born in 1860 and at the age of 16 it was recorded on the 9th of January 1874 in the Sydney Morning Herald that Mary Ann Eliza Fletcher was brought before the court by Constable Bradwell, who deposed that at 11:15 last night he saw her walking in King Street with a well-known prostitute and questioned her. She said she was 16 years old last October and that her mother was dead, that her father, Josiah Fletcher, a bootmaker, some time ago went to Hobart Town and promised to send for her, that she left her situation because the work was too hard for her, and that she has been a month about town. He took her into custody and charged her with being under 16 years of age and wandering about the streets in company with a common prostitute. Louisa Fletcher deposed the girl before the court as her sister and was 15 years old last October. Her mother had been dead for 10 years and her father has, with another wife, gone to Hobart Town, leaving Louisa with 2 brothers and the defendant before the court, all of whom are younger than herself. She has no control over the defendant and has not seen her for a month until now, and Mary was sent to Ballula, which was a girls' home. However, Mary Ann must have had continued contact with her sister Louisa, as in 1890 she placed in a memoriam for her brother-in-law James Seelan. Seelan, in loving memory of my dear brother-in-law James Seelan of Tasmania, who was drowned in the Tamar River on the 22nd of May 1890 off the SS Dorset, inserted by his loving sister-in-law Mary Ann. So it seems that Isaiah Fletcher had at least one alias, and from the reports, more marriages than I was even able to count. So a very interesting man that seems that he left his children behind to continue marrying other women.
If you are interested in sharing your story on my podcast Family History Mysteries, please go to my Facebook page and send me a message. If you would like some assistance in filling in the gaps in your family tree to see what mysteries you solve, please get in touch. And don't forget you can have early access to episodes by subscribing, and you'll also gain access to bonus episodes.